Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're exploring Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker. And you know how, some people just seem to attract wealth.
Yeah.
Well, this book kind of dives into that whole psychology behind that, claiming it's less about specific tactics and more about rewiring your financial blueprint.
Yeah, what's interesting is Eker's approach, it's not like some get-rich-quick scheme.
Right.
He challenges us to examine our fundamental beliefs about money.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with his own journey, he actually experienced some pretty big failures early on.
Oh, wow.
Even though he had the knowledge and the drive.
Interesting.
It wasn't until he realized the power of the subconscious mind that things really started to shift for him.
That's right. And he even talks about that in the book, how he was reading all the books and attending seminars, doing all the quote-unquote right things, but still struggling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a wealthy friend of his father gave him some simple advice that he had a major breakthrough. The friend told him, if you're not doing as well as you'd like, all that means is there's something you don't know.
Huh.
And that's when Eker started studying the actual thinking patterns of wealthy people.
Yeah, and that's where things get fascinating. He realized that rich people simply think about money differently. They have a different financial blueprint that's driving their actions and ultimately their results.
Okay.
And he uses this really powerful analogy of the tree of life to illustrate this point.
So imagine, your financial situation is a tree.
Okay.
The fruits on that tree represent your results, your income, your savings, your overall financial well-being.
Sure.
But what creates those fruits?
It's the roots, of course.
Yeah.
The roots of your financial tree represent your underlying thoughts,
Okay.
feelings, and actions about money.
Okay.
Eker's point is that if you want to change the fruits you're getting, meaning if you want to improve your financial situation, you have to address the roots.
So it's not enough to just learn a bunch of investment strategies or business tactics. You need to dig deeper.
Exactly.
Uncover those often invisible beliefs about money.
Right.
That might be holding you back.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Because Eker argues that our financial blueprint is formed very early in life. We're talking childhood experiences, the messages we heard growing up, and even the unspoken attitudes we absorbed from our parents.
Exactly. And it's often operating on a subconscious level, meaning we're not even aware of how these early influences are shaping our financial decisions and behaviors today.
Wow.
Eker identifies three main forces that create our financial blueprint: verbal programming,
Okay.
modeling, and specific incidents.
So let's break those down. First, there's verbal programming. Think about all those phrases you heard growing up about money. Things like, money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford that, or maybe even rich people are greedy. These messages, repeated over and over, get ingrained in our subconscious mind, even if we logically know they're not necessarily true.
Think about it. If you constantly hear that money is the root of all evil,
Right.
you're likely to approach finances with a sense of fear or guilt,
Yeah.
even if you consciously desire wealth. These messages become part of our emotional landscape, shaping our reactions to money on a gut level.
It's almost like an automatic response.
Yeah.
Then there's modeling. This is where we unconsciously adopt the financial habits and attitudes of our parents, whether those habits are good or bad. Eker shares his own story of how he mirrored his father's entrepreneurial spirit, but also inherited his pattern of financial ups and downs.
Yeah, he talks about how he would build a fortune
Wow.
and then lose it all, almost unconsciously replicating his father's financial roller coaster.
Really?
This is a great example of how the subconscious mind can override logic and drive our behaviors, even if those behaviors aren't serving us.
Right, and it's not always about directly copying our parents. Sometimes it's about rebelling against their ways.
Right.
But even that rebellion is shaped by their influence.
Yeah.
So are we basically doomed to repeat our parents' financial patterns?
Not necessarily. That's where awareness comes in. By understanding how these early influences have shaped our financial blueprint, we can start to make conscious choices.
Okay.
The first step is recognizing that these beliefs are learned, not inherent to who we are.
Okay, that's empowering.
Yeah.
But what about those specific incidents you mentioned earlier?
Right.
Eker gives some pretty intense examples of how single events can impact our financial blueprint. For instance, he talks about this woman, a highly successful operating room nurse, who was subconsciously sabotaging her own finances.
Yes, and the root of her self-sabotage stemmed from a traumatic childhood incident.
Oh, wow.
Her father experienced a public and humiliating business failure when she was young.
Oh, no.
This created a deep-seated belief in her subconscious
Hmm.
that financial success equaled pain and humiliation, even though she consciously desired wealth.
Wow, that's powerful. So even a single event from our past can have a long-lasting impact on our financial lives without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
Our minds create these strong associations that can linger for years.
That's exactly why it's so important to bring these subconscious beliefs to the surface. Once we understand them, we can start to challenge and reframe them. We can choose to rewrite our financial blueprint and create beliefs that support our financial goals.
So how do we actually do that? Does Eker give us some tools to start this rewiring process?
He does, and that's what we'll explore next. He provides some concrete strategies for challenging those limiting beliefs and developing what he calls a quote-unquote millionaire mind.
All right, I'm ready to upgrade my thinking.
Welcome back.
So now that we understand how those early experiences really shape our financial blueprint, let's dive into how to actually change it.
Okay.
Eker outlines 17 wealth files, and these are like the core beliefs and habits of millionaires.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he contrasts the mindset of rich people versus those who struggle financially, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. He's very direct about the differences in their thinking.
Yeah, so let's unpack a few of these wealth files.
Okay.
The first one that really struck me is rich people believe I create my life.
Mm.
Poor people believe life happens to me. This is all about taking ownership.
Exactly. Rich people take full responsibility for their financial situation, even when things go wrong.
Yeah.
They don't blame the economy, their boss, or bad luck.
Right.
They focus on what they can control, and they take action to create the results they desire.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that victim mentality, especially when things feel tough.
Right.
But Eker points out that complaining and feeling sorry for ourselves just drains our energy.
Right, and that's energy we could be using to find solutions and overcome obstacles.
Yeah.
He says there is no such thing as a really rich victim.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. How much time do you spend dwelling on things you can't change?
Okay, that's a good point. I know I've wasted a lot of energy in the past blaming external circumstances instead of looking for ways to move forward.
Right.
So what's the next wealth file that stood out to you?
Well, wealth file number 2 is really important. Rich people play the money game to win. Poor people play the money game to not lose.
Okay.
This highlights a fundamental difference in how people approach finances.
So it's like some people are just trying to survive financially while others are actively striving to build wealth.
Precisely. Rich people set their sights on abundance. They're constantly looking for ways to increase their income and build assets.
Okay.
Those who struggle financially tend to operate from a scarcity mindset, always afraid of losing what little they have.
That reminds me of Henry Ford's famous quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Right.
Our beliefs really do shape our reality.
Absolutely. And this leads us to wealth file number 3, which might be a bit controversial.
Right.
Rich people are committed to being rich. Poor people want to be rich. Eker makes a distinction between simply wanting something and being fully committed to achieving it.
So it's not enough to just wish for wealth. You have to be willing to do what it takes to actually make it happen.
Exactly. Rich people are willing to make sacrifices, step outside their comfort zones, and persevere even when things get tough.
Okay.
They don't just dream about being rich, they ACT on that dream.
That makes sense. It's one thing to fantasize about winning the lottery,
Right.
but it's a whole different level of commitment to build a business, invest wisely, and manage your money effectively.
And a big part of that commitment is learning how to handle fear.
Okay.
Eker emphasizes that rich people act in spite of fear. They know that fear is a natural part of the process, but they don't allow it to control them.
So it's not that rich people don't experience fear, they've just learned how to manage it,
Right.
so it doesn't hold them back.
Exactly.
Okay, that's inspiring. So what's the next wealth file on Eker's list?
Well, wealth file number 4 is all about thinking big. Rich people think big. Poor people think small. This goes back to the law of income, which states that you'll be paid in direct proportion to the value you deliver to the marketplace.
So the more impact you make, the more you can potentially earn.
Exactly.
Correct.
Rich people are always thinking about how they can solve problems on a larger scale, create more value, and reach more people with their products or services. They're not afraid to dream big and set ambitious goals.
Eker tells a great story about a trainer who went from earning $250,000 a year to $600 million in just 3 years.
Wow.
And it all started with a simple shift in his thinking.
Wow.
He decided to stop playing small and embrace a bigger vision.
It's about pushing beyond our perceived limitations and asking ourselves, What if I could achieve 10 times more than I currently believe is possible?
Right.
We're often capable of so much more than we realize, but we have to be willing to stretch our comfort zones.
That's a powerful reminder. Okay, so we've talked about taking ownership, being committed, and thinking big. What other mindset shifts are essential for building wealth?
Well, this next one is all about how we view challenges. Wealth file number 5 says, rich people focus on opportunities. Poor people focus on obstacles.
Okay.
It's about training our minds to see the potential in every situation, rather than getting bogged down by the problems.
You know, Eker talks about how some people seem to be crap magnets, always attracting negativity and drama into their lives.
Right.
Like they're focused on what's wrong instead of what's possible.
He uses a great analogy. He says that complaining is like taking a crap pill.
Oh, jeez.
It might provide temporary relief from stress,
Okay.
but it ultimately poisons our minds and prevents us from seeing the opportunities that are always present.
So instead of focusing on what we lack or what's not working, we need to shift our attention to solutions and possibilities. It's about becoming solution-oriented rather than problem-focused.
Exactly. Rich people view obstacles as stepping stones, challenges to overcome on the path to success. They understand that every problem presents an opportunity for growth and innovation.
Eker has a great phrase for this.
Yeah.
He says we need to be bigger than our problems.
Yes.
He uses that funny line, mini-me, mini-me, mini-me,
Yeah.
to remind us that if a problem feels overwhelming,
Yeah.
it's because we're looking at it from a limited perspective.
It's about expanding our capacity to handle challenges. The more we grow and develop our skills, the smaller our problems appear in comparison. And that brings us to another crucial wealth file. Rich people admire other rich and successful people. Poor people resent rich and successful people.
This one really hit home for me.
Mm-hmm.
Eker talks about how he used to feel resentful towards successful people, like when Halle Berry signed a massive movie contract.
Yeah.
And he realized that his own negativity was holding him back from achieving the same level of success.
It's easy to fall into the trap of jealousy or judgment when we see others succeeding. But rich people understand that someone else's success doesn't diminish their own potential.
Yeah.
In fact, it can be a source of inspiration and motivation.
Right. Instead of envying those who have achieved what we desire,
Exactly.
we can choose to learn from them. We can study their habits, their mindsets, and model their behaviors.
Exactly. Eker encourages us to surround ourselves with successful people,
Okay.
to absorb their energy and learn from their experiences. He even suggests paying for mentorship or coaching from those who are further along the path.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need guidance from those who have already navigated the terrain we're trying to conquer.
That's a great point. It's like having a map and a compass when you're venturing into uncharted territory. Speaking of surrounding ourselves with the right people, Wealth File number 7 says, rich people associate with positive, successful people. Poor people associate with negative or unsuccessful people. This builds on what we were just talking about, right?
Absolutely. Eker emphasizes that energy is contagious. If we're constantly surrounded by negativity, complaining, or a victim mentality, it's going to rub off on us whether we realize it or not.
He's not saying we should abandon our friends and family who are struggling,
Right.
but it's important to be mindful of the energy we allow into our lives. We need to protect our own mindset and surround ourselves with people who inspire and uplift us.
It's like choosing your team wisely. You want players who are going to elevate your game, not hold you back. And that leads us to another wealth file that might challenge some common beliefs. Rich people are willing to promote themselves and their value. Poor people think negatively about selling and promotion.
This is an interesting one. A lot of people have negative associations with selling, viewing it as pushy or manipulative.
Right.
But Eker argues that rich people understand that promoting themselves is essential for success. They're confident in their value and willing to share it with the world.
And it's not just about being an entrepreneur.
Oh.
Even in a traditional job, if you're uncomfortable talking about your accomplishments or negotiating for a raise, you're likely limiting your earning potential.
So it's about reframing our perspective on self-promotion. It's not about bragging or being arrogant. It's about confidently communicating the value we bring to the table.
Precisely, it's about being able to articulate our strengths, our skills, and the unique contributions we can make. And it's about seeing promotion as a way of serving others, connecting people with solutions that can benefit them.
This really ties back to Eker's emphasis on thinking big and focusing on opportunities. If we're playing small and hiding our talents, we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, but we're also limiting our potential to make a positive impact in the world.
He challenges us to get over any discomfort we might have with self-promotion, reminding us that if we don't toot our own horn, nobody else will. And this brings us to wealth file number 9. Rich people are bigger than their problems. Poor people are smaller than their problems. This goes back to what we were discussing earlier about taking ownership and not playing the victim.
Yeah, Eker uses a great analogy.
Yeah.
He talks about how a level 2 person facing a level 5 problem is going to feel overwhelmed.
Right.
But if that person grows to a level 8, that same level 5 problem suddenly seems much smaller.
It's a powerful way to illustrate how our perception of problems is often more about our internal state than the actual challenge itself.
So instead of trying to avoid or shrink from problems, we should focus on growing and developing ourselves.
Exactly.
So that we can handle whatever comes our way.
Exactly. Rich people see problems as opportunities for growth challenges to overcome on their path to success. They don't let setbacks define them. They use them as fuel to become even stronger and more resilient.
That's what Eker calls the warrior mentality, right? The ability to face challenges head on and emerge even more powerful on the other side.
Exactly. And this leads us to a really interesting wealth file that often trips people up.
Okay.
Rich people are excellent receivers. Poor people are poor receivers.
This one intrigues me. What does it actually mean to be a good receiver?
It's about being open and willing to receive abundance in all its forms.
Okay.
Money, love, opportunities, support.
Okay.
Poor people often block themselves from receiving due to feelings of unworthiness or the belief that it's better to give than to receive. Eker uses a great analogy to illustrate this.
Okay.
He talks about a rain puddle. Nature is abundant, but the rain has to go somewhere. If we don't create a space to receive our share, it will flow to those who are open and willing.
I like that.
He also points out that many of us have been conditioned to believe that we're not good enough or that we don't deserve to receive good things.
Yeah.
This can create subconscious blocks that prevent us from fully embracing the abundance that's available to us.
So how do we overcome those blocks and become better receivers?
Well, Eker offers some practical tips like pampering ourselves, doing things that make us feel worthy and deserving. It's about nurturing our receiving muscle.
I like it.
He also talks about practicing gratitude, acknowledging our accomplishments, and allowing ourselves to receive compliments and gifts without feeling guilty or obligated. It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance and recognizing that there's more than enough for everyone.
When we open ourselves to receiving, we not only attract more wealth into our lives, but we also enhance our overall well-being. It's about aligning our inner and outer worlds to create a life of true prosperity and fulfillment.
I'm realizing that these wealth files aren't just about money. They're about cultivating a mindset that supports success in all areas of life. They're about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
That's a great observation. Eker often says, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
The habits and beliefs we cultivate in one area inevitably spill over into others. So as we explore the remaining wealth files, keep in mind that they're not just about getting rich financially. They're about becoming richer in every sense of the word.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm already starting to shift my perspective.
I'm glad to hear that. We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, but we're not done yet. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Millionaire Mind. Are you ready to unlock the final set of wealth files?
I am. We've uncovered so much already about how, wealthy people think and act differently when it comes to money. Let's dive into these last few gems that Eker has for us.
All right, let's jump right in. This next one kind of challenges that traditional idea of working for a steady paycheck. It says, rich people choose to get paid based on results. Poor people choose to get paid based on time.
Yeah, this one really hit home for me.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that true financial freedom comes from creating value and getting compensated accordingly, not just trading hours for dollars.
And Eker makes a pretty bold statement in the book. He says, there's nothing wrong with getting a steady paycheck unless it interferes with your ability to earn what you're worth. So it's about understanding those trade-offs, right?
Exactly. A steady paycheck offers security.
Right.
But it often comes with a ceiling on your earning potential.
Right.
Rich people are willing to embrace uncertainty and step outside their comfort zones.
Okay.
To pursue opportunities where their income is directly tied to the results they produce.
He gives a great example of a public relations consultant who insisted on a fixed monthly fee regardless of the results she generated for her clients.
Yeah.
So even if she brought in like millions of dollars worth of publicity, her income was capped.
Yeah. It's a classic example of how clinging to security can actually limit your financial potential. Rich people are willing to bet on themselves, knowing that their ability to create value is ultimately what determines their worth.
It really ties back to what we were discussing earlier, right? About taking ownership and having that growth mindset. It's about believing in yourself and your ability to deliver exceptional results. Okay, so what's next?
Well, this one is a real game changer. Wealth file number 12 states, rich people think both. Poor people think either or. It's about expanding our thinking beyond limited options.
Okay.
And embracing the possibility of having it all.
I love this.
Right.
Yeah, and Eker gives some great examples like wanting both a successful career and a fulfilling family life.
Right.
Or desiring both financial wealth and meaningful work.
So often we feel forced to choose between things we desire,
Right.
settling for one at the expense of the other. But rich people understand that it's often possible to create solutions that allow them to have both.
Instead of getting stuck in that either thinking, we need to start asking ourselves, how can I have both?
Exactly. And it's about challenging those limiting beliefs that tell us we can't have it all.
I like that a lot.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to wealth file number 13, which highlights a key difference in how the rich and poor view their finances. It says, rich people focus on their net worth, poor people focus on their working income.
You know how in those, country club scenes in movies, they're always talking about their net worth? And Eker points out that that's not just a Hollywood stereotype. Rich people understand that true wealth is measured by assets, not just income.
It's about looking at the big picture, the total value of what you own minus what you owe.
Your working income is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
It's important for filling that financial funnel, but it's not the whole story.
Eker emphasizes that we need to be mindful of all four factors that contribute to net worth: income, savings, investments, and simplification.
Okay.
Rich people are constantly looking for ways to increase their assets and decrease their liabilities. They're not just focused on earning more money, they're also focused on managing and growing their wealth over the long term.
So it's not just about how much money you make, but it's also what you do with that money.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a wealth file that might seem pretty obvious,
Okay.
but it's often overlooked. Wealth file number 14 states, rich people manage their money well, poor people mismanage their money well.
And Eker, he says that most millionaires are meticulous about tracking their finances. Even if they have financial advisors, they understand that managing money is crucial, regardless of how much or how little you have.
Right, and yet so many people use the excuse that they don't have enough money to manage.
Right, right.
But as Eker points out, it's actually the opposite. He says, when I begin to manage it, I'll have plenty of money. It's about demonstrating to the universe and to ourselves that we can be responsible stewards of wealth.
It's about developing those good financial habits early on, even if you're starting with small amounts.
Exactly. And it's not about being restrictive or depriving yourself. Eker actually advocates for creating a play account.
Oh, I like that.
Where you allocate 10% of your income for guilt-free spending.
Yeah, I love that. It's about finding that balance between financial discipline and actually enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Because if we're constantly depriving ourselves, it's natural for our fun-seeking spirit to kind of rebel,
Right.
and sabotage our efforts. The play account lets us indulge without, completely derailing our financial goals.
It's about creating a sustainable approach to managing money that supports both our financial well-being and our overall happiness.
I like that.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Bring it on. I'm ready to, level up my financial game here.
All right, wealth file number 15 gets to the heart of creating lasting wealth and freedom. It says, rich people work money, poor people work for money.
Eker really kind of debunks the myth of the hardworking poor,
Right.
So there's so many people who work tirelessly but remain financially struggling.
That's because they're caught in the trap of trading their time for money. They're on that hamster wheel, working hard, but not necessarily getting ahead. Rich people, on the other hand, understand the power of leverage. They create systems and assets that generate income even while they sleep.
So it's about building streams of passive income, right?
Exactly.
Whether that's through investments, real estate, or businesses that run on autopilot.
It's about shifting our focus from earning active income, where our time equals money, to creating passive income streams that allow our money to work for us.
That's the ultimate goal, to reach a point where we're no longer dependent on trading our time for money, where our wealth is growing and working for us, even while we're pursuing our passions or simply enjoying life.
That's the dream. And it's attainable.
Hmm.
But it requires a shift in mindset and a willingness to learn new strategies for building wealth.
Okay, good stuff. What's next?
Okay, wealth file number 16 says, rich people act in spite of fear. Poor people let fear stop them. This is so important because fear can be a major obstacle on the path to success.
Right.
Yeah. Eker reminds us that fear is a natural human emotion, especially when we're stepping outside our comfort zones and pursuing big goals.
Yeah.
But the key is not to let fear paralyze us. Rich people have learned to, quote, tame the cobra of fear, unquote, as Eker calls it.
Okay.
They acknowledge the fear, but they don't allow it to dictate their actions.
He tells that great story about a seminar attendee in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
Who loved Eker's program but wouldn't drive a few hours to attend another one.
Right.
He had all sorts of excuses, but ultimately it was fear that was holding him back.
It's a great example of how easily we can allow fear to create limitations and prevent us from taking action towards our goals. We often overestimate the difficulty or the risk involved, and our minds just conjure up all sorts of worst-case scenarios that rarely come to pass.
Right. Eker really emphasizes that it's often in those moments of fear and discomfort that the greatest growth occurs.
Exactly.
He encourages us to develop that warrior mentality.
Yeah.
To push through the fear and take action, even when it feels uncomfortable.
He also shares a fascinating exercise from his Enlightened Warrior training camp.
Oh, yeah.
That illustrates this concept beautifully. It's called the arrow breaking exercise. Have you ever heard of this one?
I have. I think it's where they, participants try to break an arrow that's pressed against their throat, right?
Exactly. It sounds intense.
Yes, it does.
But it's a powerful metaphor for overcoming our perceived limitations. Most people struggle to break the arrow because their minds are creating resistance, telling them it's impossible. But with the right mindset and a burst of focused energy, it can be done.
So powerful. It's just a reminder that we're often capable of far more than we believe. We just need to break through those self-imposed limitations. Okay, so we've arrived at the final wealth file. Wealth file number 17, which states, rich people constantly learn and grow. Poor people think they already know. This one really highlights the importance of ongoing education and personal development.
Eker believes that the moment we stop learning is the moment we stop growing, and that's when we start to decline. Rich people are lifelong learners, always seeking new knowledge, skills, and perspectives.
Right.
They understand that the world is constantly changing, and to stay ahead of the curve, they need to be constantly evolving.
Yeah. They're not afraid to invest in their own growth, whether that's through books, courses, mentors, or just surrounding themselves with people who challenge them to think differently.
And they understand that learning from the right people is crucial. Eker encourages us to seek mentorship from those who are more successful than ourselves, not from those who are at the same level or even less successful.
It's about finding those who inspire us and challenge us to reach our full potential. So, wow, this deep dive into secrets of the millionaire mind has been really enlightening. We've explored the psychology of wealth, uncovered those hidden beliefs that might be holding us back, and discovered some really practical strategies for rewiring our financial blueprint.
Eker has provided us with a roadmap, a set of principles and actions we can implement to create lasting financial freedom and fulfillment. It's not about get-rich-quick schemes or magic formulas.
Right.
It's about developing that, quote, millionaire mind, unquote.
Yeah.
A mindset that embraces abundance, opportunity, and continuous growth.
He reminds us that success is not a what, it's a who. That journey to wealth starts with transforming ourselves, our beliefs, and our habits. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts and creates abundance naturally. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. What is one small action you can take today to start shifting your financial blueprint and putting these principles into practice?
That's a great question to reflect on. Choose one wealth file that resonates with you and commit to implementing it in your life. Remember, even small changes can have a ripple effect over time.
As Eker says, every master was once a disaster. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep growing. And if you're ready to dive even deeper into these principles and really accelerate your journey to financial freedom, be sure to check out Eker's website. You'll find tons of resources there, including information about his Millionaire Mind intensive seminar.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the secrets of the millionaire mind.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for your full potential.
Like and subscribe for more deep dives.